Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup, and now we're going to move on to this week's Avengers titles as well as King in Black tie-ins. Kicking things off with Savage Avengers number 16. Where we'd left off, the team comprised of Black Widow, Elektra, Punisher, Wolverine, and Hellstrom had dealt a crippling blow to the drug cartel that Shuma had taken over, and was using as a means of creating bite-sized morsels of, or that Kulan Goth had taken over in an effort to have constant access to bite-sized morsels of Shuma. And in Bruges, Magic, Conan the Barbarian, Black Knight, and Juggernaut were dealing with Saturang, an Asgardian dragon. And so, yeah, that's going about. That fight's going all right. They're doing what they can to, keep at it. Juggernaut does actually politely ask Saturang to turn back into a dude, because you gotta not hit an animal, even a dragon. But Magic has a plan, and she basically opens a teleportation disc on the fire, and so Saturang spits fire into a teleportation disc, which then opens on his back, hitting him. And it actually pisses him off. Saturang realizes that Juggernaut is able to hurt him because he's connected to Satarak. But they're having trouble getting underneath the scales. So, Conan chips off at one of Satarang's scales, and Juggernaut then drops Satarang on his back, and Magic stabs him with the Soul Sword, reverting him back to human form. And then, but she decides she doesn't want to kill the dragon because, hey, one of her best friends is a dragon. So she teleports the group to Limbo. Because, all Saturang really wanted was just to, have a nap. And Saturang just, after taking a look around Limbo, Saturang's like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I can just, I can lay my head here and sleep for many moons, and, So he gives, Magic the eye, and turns back to a dragon, curls up, and just make sure to say, hey, what I've slept for a while, would you come and get me? She's like, sure, just say my name 3 times. So they they get teleported back to the sanctum. Juggernaut parts ways, asking that they tell Strange hi for him. Strange tells Conan and Magic what went on in Mexico, and gives the eye to Conan, who turns it down. That's why he won't wear it. In part due to Crom. And he explains who Crom is. So, okay, the simple version is Crom is the god that Conan worships. The longer version is as follows. A more amusing version is as follows. Crom is an old and powerful bastard. He sits atop his mountain and looks for those with great strength, and then he hurls doom and curses. The miserable god would surely make my path harder when he noticed it around my neck. I trust in a good sword, I trust in the strength of my body, I trust in my wits, but I trust not these baubles. And he tosses the amulet into a chest of magical items of strangers. And then he goes out. He decides he's earned out of cuffs, so he goes to the bar with no name, and yeah, hanging out with Juggernaut, Sandman, Ringmaster, and a few others. Some who look familiar, some yeah, I can't place. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to oh boy. Captain America number 26. Now, quick note, this is the legacy number on this is 730. So I would imagine that in 20 months, when issue 46 drops, they might be going back to legacy numbering for 750. Might. Not saying they definitely will, but they might. They might just wait till they hit 800. I don't know. It'll be either 750 or 800 when they go back to legacy numbering, I imagine. Or when they restart the book next, whichever comes first. Anyway, where we left off, Cap and his team were in Madripoor, rescuing the Dryad, Black Widow, General Ross, and Misty Knight from the Red Skull and his forces and his goons. And it looked as though the Dryad had just about sacrificed herself for an attack on Alexa Lucan. So we begin thinking back on, Steve thinking back on his life and times, as well as Peggy's life and times, the Dryad. And he narrates the issue, talking about everything. Falcon manages to save Peggy. Crossbones is torturing Ross. And Bucky realizes that while the planes on the ground had been slagged, the ones in the air weren't. Because, they were in the air. So, their Wakandan ship gets sent to Bucky. Cap, Peggy, Sam, and Sharon are taking on the Watchdogs. Cap opines that he's been blessed with friends. Honest and truly, forget the shield, forget the service, even the war. It's the friendships he's most proud of. It's the friends that carry him through. Him and Peggy do a thing where, as she's wearing a power armor that includes an energy weapon, kind of similar to what Cap and Iron Man did in the first Avengers movie, where Iron Man fired a repulsor blast at the shield, and the shield just kind of reflect, and Cap took it with the shield, basically kind of used it, bounced it off the shield to hit the Chitauri. Similar idea, basically, but with Watchdogs. There's some background on everything that happened, about Peggy, about Sharon, about Steve. And it's how Sharon had to be, Sharon's been, let's see, Sharon's always been a warrior, had to be raised by the best. And it's funny how the universe balances these things. Alexa Lucan reappears with Peggy, her old nemesis, right on her tail. There's business for Peggy. They took Sharon and got personal. Alexa had once been an ally, now she turned to some of the power elite to quietly rule, and had found talent in unlikely places, including General Ross. So, Ross is goading Crossbones, actually. He's actually, hey, come on. Is that the best you can do? And Misty sees and asks Black Widow, is this Ross going to get killed? And Widow's like, no, he's trying to be reborn. But apparently the planes are on their way, so Crossbones and Sin split. And one of Crossbones' lackey, a guy by the name of Cutthroat, goes after, is told to finish off Ross. Falcon goes after Sin and Crossbones along the same time that Bucky's coming up behind the Madripoor jets. Takes out one of them, but part of the backlash of the explosion does kind of singe Sam a bit. But Cutthroat is hitting Ross with all with his glowy weapon, and Ross says, "More, please." And then something happens. Falcon manages to right himself while falling from the sky and sees as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross once again turns into the Red Hulk. Only this time he keeps his mustache. Takes out the two planes that Bucky couldn't get. Comes back down, stares Cap down for a bit, and then salutes Cap. Which makes sense, actually, because a while back, Ross was a member of the Avengers, handpicked by Captain America to be on the team. With, in fact, him and Storm joined around the same time and were made to work together. And Storm was asking about who he was, and are you, are you okay? So you're not Bruce Banner, you're not, and Captain America trusts you. And he said, yes, that's all I need to know. So, yeah. Not really surprised. I get why maybe Ross isn't too happy with Cap right now. Ross was not too happy with Cap recently with the whole Secret Empire thing. But, yeah, I think he's gotten over it. That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next comic for the week, Iron Man number 4. Where we left off, Iron Man had inadvertently funded Korvac's lightning experiments, and him and Hellcat had gotten attacked for it. But they managed to survive the attack. However, Korvac got away. And not only did Korvac escape, but he also managed. But with quite a bit of power. So we begin. Hellcat is hearing things. Tony's being interviewed. It turns out that James Rose, War Machine, is missing, and Tony's being interviewed by people. And some of the new reporters kind of suggest that maybe he doesn't care. And well, yeah, they're watching Tony's apartment. Hellcat and Tony from across the street. And Hellcat has a kind of a burn of sorts on the side of her face. A fractal burn on her face. And while Tony insists it doesn't look that bad, she says it stings like shit. Or, well, something else, but yeah. But he's trying to talk. They're talking, and, trying to go over what's happening, and basically she's trying to be his, moral support. And as usually happens with Tony Stark and his moral support, when his moral support happens to be a woman, they end up in bed together. Yes, I was totally shocked by this. I didn't see that coming from the first friggin' issue. In the outer boroughs at St. Michael's in New York, Korvac and his followers have Rhodey held captive there. Controller is keeping Rhodey controlled, barely. 3 control discs, and Rhodey's still able to put up a fight. And in fact, he's able to even, form sentences and talk to Korvac, and he says, then we learn that Korvac is headed towards Ta-2, the world ship of Galactus. But Rhodey is correct tip. He wants to be big cheese in the sky, lose the goatee. Makes him look like a biggest magician. And so the experiment is prepared. Um, after they slept together, Tony and Pat and Hellcat are talking about what's going on, but she realizes she can hear Korvac. So it's maybe a soft whisper. She thought it was a ringing, a fizzle in her hearing since the attack in Oklahoma in the previous issue, but it's getting louder. And he does want to make sure that, this is not mental trouble, is it? And she explains she's not schizophrenic. Not this time, at least. But she knows that something is happening. And so, Korvac and his team get Korvac ready for the experiment, to transfer all the electrical plasma into all the. They're moving every amount of energy from the lightning side battery to a single vessel, Korvac. The magnitude of the current will increase exponentially as they go. It can't get out of control, but it has to contain it. They're using New York's power grid for this. Gets tripped. All of the city goes dark. And now Hellcat knows that Ta-2 is Korvac's target. So Tony finds a person named Halcyon. Deaf man and street racer. Hands him a list and says basically, you need to find all these people. They're kind of tucked away, maybe hard to find, maybe even a little washed up. And then some of Korvac's power inhabits Hellcat. She tells Iron Man not to try to stop him, and so Halcyon knocks her down with basically opens a fire hydrant, which knocks her down. He explains he's a mutant with a weird power. His heart rate doesn't go over 70 beats per minute. And so Iron Man tells him, that list I just gave you, put yourself on it. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to this week's King in Black tie-ins. Starting with Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black, number 2. where we left off, everyone within Ravencroft Institute had been turned into some kind of shadow creature. And while most were unable to touch them, somehow Spider-Man could. Among those taken over by these shadow creatures is none other than Peter Parker's co-worker, Ned Leeds. And shortly thereafter, the sun began to eclipse. Black Knight showed up. Oh yeah, and Kang's ship got destroyed by the Watcher, and Kang then got picked up by Rocket Raccoon. So, Black Knight explains to Spider-Man that he had a vision of Merlin telling him to be here, and so Merlin then pops up behind Spider-Man and scares the crap out of him. So it explains that Black Knight's getting back up at Avengers Mansion, and that the Shadow version of Ned Leeds is going to kill J. Jonah Jameson. So back at the Bugle, turns out that Jameson just fired the science editor, guy by the name of Tyson. Sure, so what kind of middle name is DeGrasse anyway? Yeah, that's what they're going with. DeGrasse Tyson was the Beagle's science editor in the Marvel Universe. But before getting to the Bugle, Ned and Shadow Ned have a bit of an argument, but the Shadow self takes over. He attacks. And while Betty's there, she's actually aware that, oh, Ned is some kind of shadow monster right now and is trying to kill our boss. Yay! He doesn't know the fact that no matter what, including all of the fact that Spider-Man has saved Jameson numerous times, anything that happens, Jameson always tries to find a way to blame Spider-Man. And Spider-Man crashes through a skylight, saves Jameson, and as Spidey and the Shadow Creature escape, or basically get away from Jameson shouts that he's billing Spider-Man for the skylight. Back at Avengers Mansion, Merlin once again appears to Black Knight and tells him about Null. And that maybe the Ebony Blade could be, have its power levels enhanced to become a lethal weapon to Null. However, as this goes on, he's about to offer up the Ebony Blade Black Knight's about to offer up the Ebony Blade to Merlin, but then he thinks about things for a second, realizes that this whole time, Merlin, who knows Black Knight's name, his true name, Dane Whitman, has been referring to him simply as Black Knight, and asks him, "What's my name?" Turns out that Shadow Creature had the Shadow Creature that Black Knight had stabbed basically wormed his way into the Ebony Blade, and everything that he told Dane was true, except for which side he was on. Apparently, Mr. E and his followers have a very specific plan for the Blade. However, those plans don't involve Black Knight. Spidey and Shadow Ned end up in the printing press at the Bugle, with Shadow Ned also wondering, how the hell can Spider-Man touch me? They must. But as the paper's being printed, and so Shadow Ned opts to leave Ned on the printing press, and so Spidey has to save Ned rather than. But Ned explains to Spidey that the thing that took him over is headed towards Avengers Mansion. Explaining that, yeah, the thing was inside Ned's head, but it was kind of a two-way street. Back at the mansion, Black Knight, who's been run through with the Ebony Blade now, has been discovered by Kang and Rocket Raccoon. Who decided they gotta get Black Knight out of there before things get worse. That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next King in Black tie-in for the week. Black Cat, #1. Yeah, I know. Last year we had ourselves a Black Cat #1. And that Black Cat series lasted for a few issues. But for about 12 issues, and honestly, if it hadn't been for, the pandemic, this would probably, instead of being issue #1, probably be, I don't know, issue 18 or so. Well, okay, probably earlier than that, but 15, 16, 17. Yeah, probably about 16 or 17, maybe 16 or 17, one or the other. Anyway, so explain that money or operational funds, it costs money to run gigs. Got to spend it to make it. Bribes, equipment, documents, snitches, it all adds up. Ambition and greed may be the engine of a heist, but money is the fuel. Not just for thieves. Outfits like S.H.I.E.L.D. threw black money, untraceable laundered cash around like it was candy for the same reasons. Since S.H.I.E.L.D.'s gone, word on the street has it, there's still caches of this black money all over the place in forgotten drops. The problem is the Black Cat doesn't know where to find them, but someone does. So with the city in evacuation, it's kind of the perfect time for someone to go after it. In fact, S.H.I.E.L.D. even left behind the perfect getaway route, a secret highway system deep below Manhattan. And so she then asks, how do you sneak up on a vehicle moving through a secret underground tunnel? She borrowed the Spider-Mobile from Spiderman, and her crew are driving it, so she goes after the truck, and then one of Null's dragons crashes through the wall. She's woken up, and it's kind of and she gets a brief explanation from her crew of what's going on. So she goes up to look at it, to find out what the hell's going on. She explains there was an evacuation order for New York. There's always one. It's like fire drills. You don't expect it to actually matter. Adding that there was just an alien invasion, and the Avengers stopped it. That's how it works. The Avengers always stop them. You get used to it. You stop asking the question, what if they didn't? What then? And so she stumbles upon Magneto, Storm, Cyclops, and Cap trying to hold back the symbiotes. With Cap kind of giving orders with exposition. And turns out Spidey's talked to the Avengers about Black Cat. But she's constantly saying that she sees Cap that she doesn't believe in America. And finally she just said, her speech base says, I don't believe in America. Never have. America's built on theft of land, lives, dignity. Theft of my father for my entire adult life. But they call me the crook. I don't believe in America. But seeing him, hearing him talk, I almost feel like I could. But Cap's glad she showed up. They need every hand they can get if they're going to turn this around. And she's just like, we are going to turn this around, right? Like, you got this. And he explains that they're on the back foot. They brought the biggest guns they've got: Sword for Supreme, the X-Men, the trust in the hold of their end, so that more regular folks can get civilians safe. And Doc Strange is doing his shtick, keeping destroys them with symbiote dragons, and Black Cat's kind of glad that I think it's probably best that Strange doesn't see her as she robbed him recently, twice. Then more of the symbiote dragons show up, and he forms a mystical sphere on himself, and they cover the sphere. And explained that, then Null appeared, God of Light came to their aid and was torn apart. the heroes were taken. Turns out that her and her crew have gone to Alchemax. Speak to Dr. Steve. The one person Black Cat knows who knows how to hurt all the symbiote stuff. And she wants to steal something from Null. Because Null ruined her job. As the symbiotes were going after Cap told her, keep on fighting, but save Strange. She's slippery, smart, born survivor, and the only one who can do it. And she says they're not world beaters, they're not cosmic Whoozits, so they're going to steal one. They're going to steal Doctor Strange. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final Marvel book of the week, King in Black, the Immortal Hulk. And you may recall there was an Immortal Hulk tie-in back with Absolute Carnage, wherein, at least briefly, the Venom symbiote became one of the entities in Bruce Banner's head, alongside Bruce himself, Joe Fixit, and some of the other various Hulks. So apparently it is close to Christmas, and the issue begins saying "'Twas the night before Christmas." So walking through New York is Bruce Banner. Someone's heading home from a grocery store, dropping their gifts, and Hulk shows up. Tries to return his gift to him, but the guy runs from Hulk, and then one of Null's hench creatures apparently got the guy, and Hulk ends up smacking the thing and electrocuting it, and eventually, thus killing it. So then the cops show up, figure, Hulk must be behind all this, what that just happened here, but some of the symbiote gunk goes after him. Then he makes it to Mantlow's toy store and sees an old toy that he had, Mechanics, kind of like kind of like an erector set. It has some memories of his dad smashing up his Mechanics set as a kid and smacking him and his mom around. He gets a little mad and smashes the display. And then eventually he reverts back into Bruce Banner. As the symbiotified cops show up. He starts to briefly turn back into the Hulk, but Hulk's taking some time. So then Bruce goes inside the store. The creature follows, and he continues to make his way, and he basically leads them into a trap in electronics sound, and uses basically a stereo cranked up to destroy the symbiote thing, and then just to make sure, then hairspray and a lighter, and takes care of it. He stops, looks at the directory, and Hulk's back out and goes to a toy store where he proceeds to Hulk out and just play with toys. It's actually a silent issue. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.